We've made it to the top 5 of the Locked On Blue Jackets, top 25 under 25 players. Who gets the number 1 spot, and are there any sneaky surprises in the ranking? Let's talk about that on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're finishing off the series that I started last week, the top 25 Blue Jackets under the age of 25. I had a ton of fun with this series. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. We're at the final hurdle here. I mentioned surprises at the top on the cold open, and by surprises I mean just obviously we all know the 5 players that are left, right? It's the top 5 guys that are under the age of 25. You know, arguably there's a guy in here that I didn't have in my top 5, but that's beside the point. The players that are left, you know who they are, right? But there were some surprises for me anyway in terms of where they were ranked. So let's just jump straight into it. Number 5, we've got Dmitry Voronkov, who, full disclosure, I did not have in my top 5. I think I had him ranked 6th in my final ranking. You know, I'm not good. Again, this is not a hill to die on. Is not the difference between ranking someone 5th overall and 6th overall, right? But he was just outside my top 5. I was a little bit surprised to see him inside the top 5, although honestly, like, not that surprised. I do think the fan base as a whole rates him slightly higher than I do, and that's not to say that I don't like Dmitry Voronkov, right? I think he is a fascinating example of a player who shouldn't work but does, right? He skates like he's got concrete blocks strapped to his skates. He obviously doesn't have the conditioning. That's been a big issue the past couple of seasons. We'll see what happens in training camp if he comes in a little bit leaner, a little bit lighter. Surprisingly soft hands for the big guy. You know, not necessarily the smartest, most like cerebral player, let's say, but is extremely good at being in the right spot at the right time. So like maybe he is cerebral in that sense, right? Like I go back and forth on hockey IQ and like what that means necessarily, and who has a good hockey IQ and who has a bad hockey IQ, etc., etc. I wouldn't consider Voronkov to be like super high hockey IQ, but the man knows his job and he knows where to go to do it, right? He had a really, really good season for the Blue Jackets. 23 goals, 47 points, up from his rookie season. He had 34 points in 75 games. This season he played 73 games and had 47 points in those games. So good increase. Again, first 20 goal season. If you can get 20 goals a year out of Dmitry Voronkov, you know, going forward. And this is also to say, like, he really kind of fell off the last, I want to say, like 30-ish games. Like, he was really, really hot to start. And then we hit about the start of February, I want to say, like mid-February. And then he just kind of basically disappeared until the last week of the season when he scored 3 goals in his last 6 games. So again, figure out the conditioning. You'll figure out the rest of Voronkov, because I do think there is a player there. My guess is he probably gets the chance to start on that top line with Monahan and Marchenko. That was a really, really solid line for the Blue Jackets last year. Like one of the best 5-on-5 lines in the league at creating offense, certainly. I think they had 65-ish goals between the 3 of them, which is it's extremely not nothing, right? Might have been a couple more, might have been a couple less. I can't, math is impossible, you know me. But like Voronkov, I think, is a player that we talked about this a little bit in the last episode, I think, of like players of like potential versus this is what they are now, right? And I think this is more or less what you're going to get with Voronkov, right? I don't know that he necessarily has another whole other gear to step into. What I would love to see is for him to stay in the same gear that he started the season with all the way through, right? Because he did take his foot off the gas, and again, that's a conditioning thing. That is a like something that needs to be solved because he's making a not insignificant amount of money this year and next year. I believe he's making more than Kromachenko, actually, which does seem wild to me. But he is a player that, like, I don't think we're going to see a huge jump from Voronkov in terms of point production going forward. I would like to see him hit the 25 goal mark. I would like to see him maybe try and hit the 60 goal mark. That feels about peak for Voronkov, you know? And again, he's not flashy. He's not fancy. He's not, you know, you're not going to get up out of your seat for Dmitry Voronkov necessarily in the way that you would with players like Ken Johnson, right? Like, he's not fancy. He just kind of is. He's a really good third guy on a line. And this is a kind of a thing we've talked about, you know, over the offseason, right? He's never going to be the sole driver on a line the way that someone like Kromachenko or Ken Johnson is, right? He is a guy that is a great addition to a line. He is a great, again, third guy on a line, you know? And I think he understood his role on that line. He really clicked with Kromachenko. I do worry that if you separate those two players, you won't get as effective of Voronkov, because I think that was the other thing as well, is that you move him away from Marchenko. I think he struggles with communication, and I don't know that another player on this team gets Voronkov the way that Marchenko does, right? I think those two really, really click. The problem is I don't know that those two players should necessarily be on the same line all the time, right? I know that I said that, you know, they should have Voronkov and Monahan and Marchenko as that top line. I don't think that sticks as the top line. I don't think that Voronkov is necessarily a top line talent, but for right now, he's about as good as they've got, right? And again, he's a great third guy on that line, a great support guy, and you could do worse than having Voronkov on that line, right? So I understand. Again, I had him ranked below Lindstrom just because I think Lindstrom has a higher ceiling, has more potential, but Voronkov's still an extremely good player that, despite all appearances, seems to have carved out an NHL role for himself that I wasn't convinced he was going to be able to carve out based on kind of my early watchings. And I am pleased to be wrong about that, right? Like, I thought that this was going to be a bottom six guy that was maybe a face-off guy. And instead, he's turned into a very acceptable top six winger for this team, which is great. Love that. Love to be wrong, you know? A player that I wasn't wrong about, and a player that I am extremely smug to have been right about, is number 4 on this list, Jet Greaves. Now, again, full disclosure, Jet Greaves was in my top 3. I had him ranked 3rd overall. I'm not going to split hairs between 3rd and 4th, but Jet Greaves is very similar to Luca Del Barbaluz, right? Or very similar to Evan Gardner, of like, got that dog in him, right? You know, I'm not going to go through his whole backstory again because we've only got 30 minutes, and I've you know, I would quite happily do an entire episode about Jet Greaves if I had to, but undrafted, goes to Blue Jackets rookie camp because they don't have any eligible goalie prospect, uses that to get an AHL deal, uses that to get an NHL deal, works hard, is one of the best goalies in the AHL for the past 2 or 3 years, and looks like he's going to get his NHL shot, like a real NHL shot this upcoming season. Kept the Blue Jackets in it at the end of last season, had a .938 save percentage through 11 games for them, had that 6-game winning streak to end the season. Just an incredible body of work. I think he had 2 shutouts in those 6 games as well, which is just wild. Truly it's the size of the fight in the dog, not the size of the dog in the fight, right? Jet Greaves he says he's 6 foot tall. I still don't believe him, having stood next to him. Again, not going to blow up his spot, but he is a very, very small goalie. And he's made that work for him. Again, like his numbers in the AHL speak for themselves. His numbers in the NHL speak for themselves. He should be given every opportunity this season to be, if not the starting goalie, he should be getting at least 40 games this season. If they could figure out Elvis, then great. Like, I would love for them to figure out Elvis. He's getting paid 5 times the amount of money as Jet Greaves, but I think Jet Greaves' play last season, yes, it's a small sample size, but that has earned him the right to make his case. And I think it's going to be very interesting watching him in preseason and in training camp to see what happens with the goaltending, because I do think there is a world where Jet Greaves becomes the starting goalie. Like, honestly, there's a world where he's the starting goalie on opening night. There's a world where he's the starting goalie by the beginning of November, right? Like, it very much feels like it's not a case of if, it's when. I think Jet Greaves is going to unseat Elvis this season, and I think, frankly, I think playing Elvis less will be good for his game. But Jet Greaves, man, I can't say enough good things about this kid. Great attitude, great kid, like just a real case of if you want it that bad, go and get it, because he wanted it and he got it. And I'm really, he might be the guy that I'm most excited to watch this season. Just because I do think that in terms of like pure, like, I don't know, the potential is not quite the word I want, but like it feels like this season could be Jet Greaves' coming out party in a big way. Like, you know what you have with Adam Fantilli. He's going to get better, but you know what you have with it, right? You know what you have with Kent Johnson, with Dmitry Voronkov, with Denton Mateychuk, etc., etc., etc. I don't know that people know what they have with Jet Greaves yet, and I'm really, excited for like the average NHL fan to learn Greaves' name, because here he comes, right? Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about another young player that kind of just forced his way onto the NHL roster this season and didn't go away. We're going to talk about Denton Mateychuk in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you about Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts, even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And when I signed up to Monarch Money, I actually found out that I was paying Netflix twice. So that was great to save, it's only $7 a month, but hey, that is an entire latte these days. So that was great for me to learn. Don't know how long I'd been doing that, but should have got to Monarch sooner and would have saved myself those $7 even earlier. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets, talking about the top 25 under 25. We're down to the top 3. Denton Mateychuk is third. I had him fourth on my list. Again, like, once you get to this point, it really is just a case of like personal preference. I think everyone knows who the top 6 or 7 players are. It just depends on how much you like each player. I had Greaves slightly above Mateychuk, but like I could have very easily seen an argument for Mateychuk go over Greaves, and that is in fact what the consensus picked. Denton Mateychuk is a revelation. I know that I remember way back when we were doing draft coverage for that draft, which would have been the 2022 draft. There was 3 WHL defensemen that kind of were all grouped together. It was Denton Mateychuk, it was Owen Pickering, and it was a dude that I don't even remember the name of, which is like not a great sign. But like those were the 3 guys, right? And a lot of the prospect guys I talked to had Mateychuk ranked as the third of those 3 guys. And Mateychuk drafted 12th overall and responded to that by scoring 65 points in 63 games, wearing the C for the Moose Jaw Warriors. The season after that, 75 points in 52 games for Moose Jaw, 30 points in 20 playoff games that season. I believe the Moose Jaw Warriors won the WHL that year, went to the Memorial Cup. I don't believe they won the Memorial Cup. No, they didn't. But like, again, Matejchuk, just a real force of nature. Turned pro, had 3 points in 4 playoff games for the Monsters at the end of last season. They were down 3-0 to the Hershey Bears. Matejchuk comes in. Obviously, correlation is not causation, but I remember them being down 3-0, and then he comes in and they win the next 3 games. Obviously, losing that heartbreaking game 7, but sets him up really well for his AHL dominance. He had 25 points in 27 games for the Monsters this season before getting called up. And inevitably, didn't go back down until after the Blue Jackets season was done. He played in the playoffs for the Monsters, had 5 playoff points in 5 playoff games, but really solidified himself as a top 4 defenseman on this team, which is great news because, again, I think a lot of people were like, well, yeah, Matejchuk's fun, but Jiricek's going to be the stud in this draft class for the Blue Jackets. And, I said that myself. I was like, yeah, Matejchuk's a fun addition, but I'm really excited to see what David Jiricek became. Matejchuk jumped Jiricek in development basically immediately, right? Again, I don't know what they'll see from him in Minnesota this season. Hopefully good things. I want good things for Jiricek. I like him a ton as a player. But Matejchuk just, again, he has that number 1 defenseman potential, and he's not going to get that while Werenski's still in his prime, but by the time Werenski's 30, 31 and starting to decline, Denton Matejchuk's only going to be 25-ish. Exactly the right time to take over and be that number 1 defenseman, which is such good news. And again, just all the potential in the world, and he really started to come into his own this season. He only had 13 points in 45 games, which I think is, again, rookie defensemen typically don't score a ton, or if they do, it's sacrificing the defense aspect of things. Denton Matejchuk was an excellent player, both ends of the ice. Didn't put the puck in the net as much as he wanted to, I think, but I would be very surprised if that offense doesn't take a jump this season. I think he's going to be great. He's going to be a top 4 defenseman on this team for a very long time. Needs a new contract in a couple of seasons, and that sure is going to be interesting. So we'll see what happens with that. But again, in terms of once you get into the top 5, there's no wrong answers here. Matejchuk, 3rd, very, very worthy 3rd overall ranked player for this team. Let's talk about the 2nd ranked player. And I'm sure no one will be surprised to hear that it's Kent Johnson. There is a world where you could argue that Kent Johnson is top. I think, there's a world any of these players you could argue is the best top 20, is the best player under the age of 25 if it was not for Adam Fantilli. Right, Adam Fantilli is so good. We'll talk about him in a minute here. Not to get ahead of myself, but shocker, Adam Fantilli is the number 1 under 25-year-old player on this team. But Kent Johnson could very well have that all to himself, right? Just an extremely good season from him. 57 points in 68 games after missing. He started off hot. I think he got injured the 4th game of the season. Missed about a month, came back, picked up exactly where he left off. Kind of, again, bounced around the lineup a little bit. They weren't sure where to put him. He was getting power play time, which is, great, but he didn't really, settle into a position until they put him with Fantilli, and those 2 guys just took off together. Ken Johnson is making $1.8 million for the next 2 seasons, which is an insane deal that is going to be is arguably one of the best deals in the league right now. And again, unlike Voronkov, Ken Johnson isn't done yet. He is 22 years old. He'll turn 23 about a week into the season, I think. He had 24 goals this year. I think there's more goals in him. He's more of a playmaker than a scorer, but like honestly, I'm looking at 80 points for Kent Johnson this season, and it's the way that he scores as well. Like he is just his feet have finally started to catch up to his hands. He's never going to be like the best, most graceful skater in the world, but I think he worked on his skating a lot over the summer. Worked on putting muscle on over the summer as well. Got a little bit heavier, got a little bit bigger, which is great because he's a guy that struggles to put weight on and keep weight on. Some guys are just skinny. That's not an insult, but I think he's a guy that is going to have to work a little bit harder to keep that bulk on. And I think, whatever he did last summer, it clearly worked for him, right? He came in ready to go, didn't ask for a top 6 position, but forced his way up there, right? And again, like him and Fantilli together are so much fun, electric. I want to see them on the same line for the next 15 years, right? But I generally think there's like, he should be a point a game player this season, easily. And whether that's, 30 goals and 50 assists or 25 goals and 60 assists or whatever it is, that's a point a game player. And he's only going to get better from here. Like he's not done yet. And that is just so exciting. Again, he was kind of a surprise in the draft. I think he was around about 9 or 10 on my original board. Blue Jackets wanted a center. Obviously, that hasn't, like Kent Johnson, again, similar to Voronkov, who was drafted as a center. Johnson's found a home on the wing, which I'm not mad at all. I think he's an excellent winger that, could potentially play center if the team needed him to, but I think you sacrifice an extremely good winger at that point. Team wanted a center. They picked him. I think Mason McTavish going 3rd overall screwed things up for everybody. But like, again, looking at that draft and looking at how it's kind of shaken out so far, like it's hard to be mad at Ken Johnson at 5th overall. Like that feels like excellent value for me. And he's just gonna keep going. Like again, I can't stress enough how much he's not done. He is 22 years old. He is not going to hit his full stride for at least another 2 seasons. And I think we're going to see a big, big season from Kent Johnson this upcoming season. So a very, very easy 2nd overall in the top 25 under 25. If not for Fantilli, an easy 1st. Like if that's just how it is. And that's not disrespect to Kent Johnson. That's how good Adam Fantilli is. We're going to talk about Adam Fantilli in just a second here, actually, and we'll take a quick break, and then did I spoil who got number 1? Maybe, but I don't think anyone is surprised by who it is. So we're going to talk about Adam Fantilli and how good of a player he is for the Blue Jackets in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. We're talking about Adam Fantilli. We've gone all the way through our top 25 under 25, and I'll run through the list at the very end here. But Adam Fantilli, at the very top, I am unsurprised. I am you love to see it, but also it was never going to be anyone else, right? Adam Fantilli, 3rd overall. Took a little bit of time to hit his stride, had a promising start to a rookie season derailed by injury, took a minute to get into it when he was in his sophomore season. Halfway through the season, just took off. 31 goals in 82 games as a 20-year-old, 54 points. Like, again, he's gonna get better, and he's nowhere near done, right? Again, I'm looking at him and Kent, like Kent Johnson, I'm looking at him to have a huge jump. I think, probably 30 goals is probably about where he's going to be, right? He is not a goal scorer, a pure goal scorer. But if you can get, if you get 30 to 35 goals out of him every year and, 50 to 60 assists or whatever it is, like you're laughing, right? It's great. It's exactly what you wanted from your 3rd overall pick. I keep forgetting that he's a 3rd overall pick because I had him so high up on my list. Like I really was like, man, he's gonna go second, and it like, and Leo Carlson, great player. I still kind of can't believe how lucky the Blue Jackets were to get Fantilli at third overall. You talk to prospect guys, and they're like, you know what? The year before, he would have gone first overall. The year after, probably would have gone first overall. That's no disrespect to guys like Yuri Slafkovsky or guys like Macklin Celebrini, but like Fantilli's special. He is a special, special player, and I am so excited to see him play in Columbus for a long time. People are getting kind of twitchy about the contract extension. I am coming down on the side of I think it's going to be a bridge deal. I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I am always a fan of players betting on themselves. I don't know whether it's going to be, 3 years or 4 years or 5 years or whatever, but I think the team would love to get him locked up to an 8-year deal, obviously with the CBA kicking in. Or the new CBA kicking in as of next season. You'll only be able to sign for 7 years, will be the longest contract length, 6 if they are a free agent coming from another team. So I'd like, the team obviously wants to get him signed for 8 years, but I don't know. If he signs for 3 years, I'm not mad at that. I think it's the player betting on himself, right? It's hard to, it's frustrating as a fan. I personally would give him, I would give him 10 million for the next 8 years and be like, right, job's done. I think it's probably going to come in more like 3 times 11. Maybe 3 times, and somewhere between 9 and 11 for 3 or 4 years. Like, that's my guess, which is just kind of kicking the can down the road, I think, a little bit. But I will be very, very interested to see what that contract ends up being. It's not going to be an overpay no matter what it is. I don't think you can overpay for a player like Fantilli unless you want to give him like, $16 million or whatever it is. But I'm really, really excited for Adam Fantilli next season. I know that I said that I was the most excited for Jack Greaves, but Fantilli's a year older. He's a year, more mature. Finished the season with, I think, like 4 goals in 2 games, had 2 hat tricks, tied for the team lead in goals with 31, like had the same number of goals as Kromachenko, who was the sniper on the team, right? Like, imagine what Fantilli could do if he played at the same pace for the second half of the season that he had for the first half of the season that he had for the second half of the season. I think he had 7 goals in his first 40 games and then 24 goals in his last 45 games or whatever it is. Like, insane. If he hits the ground running like Ken Johnson did this year, like, he's going to tear this league apart. And I am really, really excited to see it. So that's our top 25 under 25. I'm going to run through the list real quick. We had our honorable mentions. We had Sergei Ivanov, William Whitelaw, and Jordan Demay were my honorable mentions. And then from 25 down, we got Victor Hedden Raftime, we've got Mikhail Pucha, Pyotr Andrianov, Jack Williams, Luke Ashton, Tanner Henricks, Andrew Strathman, Malte Vass, Hunter McCown, Charlie Ellick, Evan Gardner, Luca Pinelli, Stanislav Sozil, James Malatesta, Luca Morelli, Jackson Smith, Cole Sillinger, Luca Del Balbaluz, Caden Lindstrom, Igor Chinikov, Dmitry Voronkov, Jack Greaves, Denton Matejchuk, Ken Johnson, Adam Fantilli. It's a heck of a list. A lot of very, very good players on that list. And they're only going to keep getting better. So that's the Locked On Blue Jackets top 25 under 25. Hopefully you guys are just as excited about these players as I am. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this series. I'm going to be back tomorrow. I'm going to be back on Thursday. We are going to be talking about the Blue Jackets defense, specifically the top 4. We're going to look at what the top 4 was like last season. Obviously, they're bringing back the same top 4 this season. So we'll see what the defense is going to look like. We'll do a little bit of a deep dive. We'll probably look a little bit at the penalty kill as well, because I think that was a big problem last season. So that's going to be Thursday's episode. Thank you for listening, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Blue Sky at JKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter and LO-Blue Jackets on Blue Sky. Thank you once again for listening. Back on Thursday. And until then, make sure you stay locked on.